Welcome to the IIBA Tampa Bay, Florida chapter. This is our study group for March 7th, 2024. This is our 110th study group. Today we are going to interview Jen Battan. She's going to talk about design sprints for analysts, and we are so excited because what she's going to bring us is a tool that can be used by everyone that's working to get a team on the same page. Our mission here is to bridge the gap between industry leaders and business analysts by building partnerships with professionals, educators, and employers so that we may empower and instruct and engage our BA community. Our community is worldwide, and I'm so excited. Although we are the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter, we have members from all over the world, and we are doing that because we have our study groups every week. We don't charge for anything. We are here to raise you up and help you get to where you want to be in your career. So if you have questions, I'll tell you how to get answers in just a minute. We've given you a variety of ways to reach out to us. This is our Thursday night study group from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern US. Several of you are joining us live. Several of you will join us on our recording on YouTube. We have our LinkedIn group, our meetup, our Zoom online. We have study group materials on Google Docs, which also has a variety of interesting things that our members have contributed, of things that they have designed for their own study, for their certification study plans. And then we have our meeting recordings on YouTube. We have over 100 recordings, so we have a lot of things to give to you. Watermark Learning has been our constant companion throughout this study group. They've given us a discount code on all of their products, business analysis, product management, and a few other things. Their discount code is Tampa 21. It will give you 20% discount on any of their products. We are a volunteer-led organization. Our president right now happens to be in Europe, but we love him anyway. His name is Cliff. Yulia is our vice president of finance. Vivian, Uche, and Esther are our board members at large. My name is Thea Soren. I am the vice president of career and professional development. You can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn, and it's our job to help you. So if you have any questions about how to become a business analyst, joining our study group, certification, whatever you need, that's what we're here for. We are looking for a few more board members. We are wanting to be an award-winning chapter, and we have discovered that it takes a little bit of work. What we need from you is to volunteer maybe 2 hours a month and help us figure out some things so that we can become better. The reason we want to be better is because the more we are known, the better we can help more people. We can help network, we can help provide studies. So if you want to help, join us. It looks good on your resume. Our study group advisors are Bob Churchill. You see him right here. And we also have Yulia and Uche. They are all CBAP certified, which means that you get an hour of education credit for participating in this class. Bob is also in green on the screen there, and we'll drop it in the chat, has a website that not only has awesome stuff, but he's put a Tampa page on there, which gives you access to all of our YouTubes. And so it's by topic. If you're looking for all the information we've gone through for chapter 4, we've done it 4 times. And so we have practice study questions ready for chapter 4 for you to go through with us. We talk about what question is the best answer. What answer is the best answer, while the other answers are not good, and the conversations are golden. We have had people say that because of our study group, they've been able to earn their certification, and that is gold to us. That is what feeds us and why we're doing this. So if you're one of those people, whether you joined us live or if you have just watched us on YouTube, let us know. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to put your name on here and the win that you have accomplished. We want to celebrate it with you. We typically focus on the top 3 certifications. These are the 3 certifications from the BABOK. So if you're studying the BABOK for the ECBA, which is for beginner business analysts, the CCBA is for 2 to 3 years of experience, or the CBAP, which is 5 years or more, this is the study group for you. We will have our professional series, and then in just about a month and a half, we're going to start going through the BABOK again and going through those practice test questions, and we're going to get you prepared to take your CBAP or whichever certification it is. Today we have Jen Battan with us. She's going to be talking about design sprints for analysts. It's the design sprint concept as Jason Knapp created it, but she has adopted it for our job, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say. Coming up next week, we have Robert Snyder. He's going to talk about people-centric methodologies, and I'm excited to hear what he has. He sent me a whole lot of words, guys, and I don't know which ones to cut out to make it easier to read, but I know he's going to give us good stuff. The following week, we have Betsy Stockstill going to talk to us about what AI means for the business analyst. And then at the end of this month, we have a panel of international participants going to talk about what does business analysts mean in their world, in their career, in their country. And I have a few questions I'm going to ask them. I'm going to ask them to give us some examples of jobs that they've had and projects that they've run in their country. What are their challenges as business analysts? A few things like that. We have got 7 participants that are coming from around the world. Some of these people are coming in the middle of their night to participate in this. So I want to hear what they have to say, but I want us to understand what business analysts have to do around the world. And I bet you we're going to find out it's the same thing everywhere. We have different regulations because of countries. We have some cultural differences. It's the same thing. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jen and let her have the screen and let her talk about who she is and what she has for us.
All right. Hi, everybody. I hope you can all hear okay. I turned on a lamp because it's starting to get dark here, and I have windows in front of me that normally during my day I get sunlight, but I don't have my other lights set up. So I have a very large lamp over here. It's that you can see the shadows occurring. So it's a little like, what's going on over there? It's kind of funny. And Zoom keeps flipping up that I have the recognize gestures on, and it does a little AI thing like, oh, I'm trying to recognize your gesture, and then it distracts me, and it's kind of fun and kind of crazy. Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Battan. I am coming to you from the somewhat sunny, but it's sunset time now. I am here in Minnesota. I'm in the Twin Cities area, and I'm a huge fan of all IIBA chapters everywhere. I helped charter our local chapter here in Minneapolis, St. Paul many, many moons ago. Was on the board for many years. And I have been doing this BA stuff for, I just did some math and realized I have to roll myself up to another 5 years. So it's been 25-ish years that I've been doing this kind of work. So I always say I'm kind of like farmer's insurance. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two, either as an analyst that's been boots on the ground doing the work, or as a consultant, a trainer, and all of that good stuff. I am part of the Uncommon League. So if you are looking for some training opportunities, we do a lot of stuff virtually. I'm also doing a few additional things on my own. We're kind of spreading out, sharing the love a little bit. I will be in the Orlando area later in April. We will at the Project World Business Analyst World conference that'll be in Orlando, April something or other. I really wish I would remember the dates off the top of my head, but I have 2 other conferences coming right before that. It'll be right after the BBC conference though. So if you are going to be there, stop by, say hi. I'll be there the entire conference. I've got some great workshops going on and some great sessions for that particular conference. So I'm hoping that I'll see you all there. We'll talk about some other things that I'll be doing kind of when we get to the end of our session here today. But today what we want to talk about is I want to talk with you about design sprints and what are design sprints and how can we as analysts use a design sprint. This is like, what is it? And there's a lot for us to kind of talk about in this area, in this space, because there's a lot that it is and a lot that it isn't, and when to use a design sprint versus when not to. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to kind of keep in mind as analysts. There are so many techniques out there. If you're looking for a techniques book, I have a fabulous one I can recommend to you. I'm a little biased because I wrote it, but I do have that. Our techniques book at the Uncommon League is the Uncommon Book of Analysis Techniques, and it is really a how-to for many techniques, which is great because the group of us we were talking about, the BABOK isn't really a how-to manual. It is more of informational rather than telling you how to do your job, right? You still have to apply the knowledge. You still have to apply a technique, but how to apply that technique, when to apply that technique is really important. So I have a little passion around that area. And when it comes to the concept of design sprints, before we even get into really getting into design sprints, I want to hit, I know this is horrible, but I've got to hit, I know we've got some glossary people in the room, right? You care about glossary, you care about definitions. So let's hit some definitions before we dive into what this is. So I want to talk a little bit about what the heck is product and a couple of terms that we've seen kind of popping up that can be a little confusing. And I say that they're confusing, and in reality, I don't think they are. But once we start talking about sprints, it's really easy to get tripped up as to what we mean. So I want to talk a little bit about the sprint vocabulary as well as product vocabulary. Product is pretty straightforward when it comes right down to it. A product is anything that we create. It's an item or it's a service that is offered. It could be a software application. It could be my lovely iPhone, right? Any of those things. It could be a tangible physical product. It could be a software service. It could be both. It could be a little bit of each, something like, if you think about something like DoorDash, there's a real service there. There's a service, but there's also an app, right? There is something physical. I get food when I get DoorDash, right? That matters to us. When we talk about product management, product ownership, and business analysis, those roles and those disciplines are kind of coming together in kind of an interesting way. And we can argue that they should be separate, that they should be kept very far apart. The reality is these are bordering on, I'm not going to say it's a career path. I don't know that every BA wants to become a product manager, nor that every product manager had to start as a business analyst. But the whole idea across product management, product ownership, and business analysis is we care about our customers and we care about what it is that they're going to do with our product, and they have problems that we want to solve, right? Product managers tend to be mini CEOs about their product. They usually have decision-making authority, profit and loss authority. They are marketers, they are market experts, and they make decisions about their product. That's true product management. Product ownership takes that product management piece, pulls it into Agile, right? And gives us someone who can represent the customer within an Agile team. So usually the concept of product ownership, in some circles, product owners are junior product managers. I don't know that I love that, by the way, but it sometimes happens, right? Business analysts, though, we're all about identifying requirements, elicitation, we're doing strategic alignment, all of the things that, isn't that what a product owner does and a product manager, right? We focus on our customers, their problems. How do we get all of that solved in the best way possible, right? So when we talk about where design sprints come from, when we start to talk about product, realize that this can go across multiple disciplines, right? I just wanted to give ourselves a little shout out there. Product market fit is a concept that is really strongly rooted in the product management and kind of the old school product management philosophy. And I say old school when product management was all about designing a product and literally marketing it and getting people to buy that product, use that product, etc. The concept of product market fit is that scenario where we bridge the gap where the company's target customer is buying and using the product that the company sells, right? In large enough numbers to sustain that product's growth, the company's growth, all of that good stuff. It's not just, the if we build it, they will come kind of a situation. That's not product market fit. If we build it, they will come. We probably know who we're building it for. That's where product market fit comes into play, right? And then, of course, we have customer, which we talk about a lot as analysts. And I kind of love this. I did some consulting with a company and they wanted product management training. And in some of our discovery meetings, I talked about stakeholders. And I got told, very not high-fivey, but very, hang on a minute. Stakeholder is a BA word. Product people use the word customer. Well, I wasn't going to argue with the client, but let's kind of get this out of the way, right? Customers use our products. A customer might be an end user from a software perspective, but they also might be a buyer. So they might be somebody who makes the purchase, but doesn't necessarily use the product. Now, there are other kinds of stakeholders out there that we as analysts identify and analyze and work with and talk to and all of that good stuff as well. But very specifically, in this case, we're going to be thinking about the customers who use our product or impact our product in that kind of way. This isn't about requirements elicitation or anything like that. So I wanted to be sure that we were okay thinking about customers or so as buyers or as users, at least in the context of this talk for today. All right. So let's look at sprints for a moment. And when we talk about sprints and a little bit of other stuff I wanted to throw in here to just make sure we knew what we were talking about before I started using the terminology and got people all confused. So when we talk about an agile sprint, some people call them iterations, that 2 to 4 week thing, right? That time box that we use when we're doing any kind of agile approach or agile methods where we kick it off at sprint planning and we end at a demo and the retro and it's that time box that we create. Sprint zero is, depending on who you ask, right? Sprint zero is getting us set up to be truly sprinting. There is no rule that sprint zero must exist. There is no rule that sprint zero is only 2 weeks or however long your sprints are going to be. But sprint zero is meant to kind of set you up, right? There's some people, especially in the Agile community and in some of the Scrum communities. I have one person that I'm thinking of in particular who I was in a certification class with them and they said, in as snarky and sarcastic of a tone as possible, is the reason we call it, the reason they call it sprint zero is because it provides zero value. We're not going to argue that today, but we will say it sets us up and helps us to be ready to actually do some of that sprinting work. There is some pre-work that we might need to do sometimes. That might be where sprint zero comes into play. Now, when we talk about, we're going to get into design sprints, I wanted to make sure that we talked about other types of sprints and a little nod to design thinking here as well. Other types of sprints, and what I mean by this, Jake Knapp is the guy who is credited with, and I have it right here. I'll show it to you on the next page as well. The Sprint book, right? Jake Knapp and a couple of other guys developed this concept while they were at Google Ventures. And there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of design sprints that have been facilitated around the world for many different purposes. Jake and a couple of, he has 2 business partners, have just created a new company that focuses on helping entrepreneurs. They're a little bit of a venture capital kind of an investing organization that helps entrepreneurs really get their products like defined and off the ground, right? And when we talk about, so from Jake's perspective, they do run what they call other kinds of sprints. They run a brand sprint, a foundation sprint, design sprints, story sprints, pitch sprints, risk sprints. And it is to them, it's just simply a time box with a very specific focus, right? So when we look at these types of sprints, we're not going to get into those. And by the way, a brand sprint is literally about marketing. Story sprints have nothing to do with user stories. So what we're going to talk about the rest of this time we're together has nothing to do with what most of us would call truly agile or truly Scrum or anything like that. It's just the sprint is time boxed and it's a short period of time. It's not months, it's a week where we focus on very certain information. All right. When we talk about design thinking, I have a little example to kind of put this into perspective for us. And it's kind of funny because I will say it's not my analogy, but it was kind of a good analogy and it stuck with me. So let's give a quick nod to design thinking versus design sprints. So if we think about pasta or we think about noodles, right? A cooking class is a little bit more, if you decided you wanted to become a chef, you would take cooking classes, you would learn about flavor profiles, you would learn about the blending of flavors. You'd also learn how to use certain tools, how to cut properly and use your knife skills. You would learn how to properly chop an onion. What does julienne versus dicing mean? All of that good stuff. It's much more theoretical, right? That if you jumped straight from your cooking class, and that's more design thinking, that's your cooking class, is helping you to understand all of the possibilities that are out there. Could you then create pasta and create a decent dish? Absolutely. Could we also, if all of us in this room, there are 22 of us, if all of us tried to cram into the kitchen to make some pasta, it's going to be a little bit of a mess. We're all going to be trying to figure out who's cutting and who's dicing and who's sauteing and all of these other things. The design sprint is a way for us to take the tools that we learned and the foundational stuff that we've developed in our cooking class idea. We can develop a recipe. Actually, the design sprint is a really specific recipe that says we're going to follow this. We're going to try to tweak things. We're going to try to make some changes. We're going to follow that recipe, and every one of us is going to know exactly what to do and exactly what to expect. Are we still going to get pasta? Yes. Are we able to innovate with our recipe, and is our pasta going to be the most amazing and new pasta dish anybody's ever heard of? Maybe not right away, but as we go through some iterations to try out different recipes, different ways to mix up the flavor profiles, etc., that's when we're going to get to that point of innovation, those new flavors and things like that. So we're not really talking design thinking here either, but we are going to talk about the sprints, design sprints. So what's a design sprint, Jen? The design sprint was, like I said, developed by Jake Knapp and a couple of other John and Braden are the two that have their bylines on the book as well. But they developed this out at Google Ventures. And the whole idea behind the design sprints was to, whoops, sorry about that, as I'm moving my stuff all over the place. It was to build better products faster, solve big problems, and to test ideas in just 5 days or less. And I'm adding the or less or more. It kind of depends. We'll get to that in a little bit here as well. The whole goal of a design sprint is to create and test a simulation of your product in order to assess product market fit, right? So if you think of this from an entrepreneurial perspective, or if we're a brand new business and we're going to try to come up with this brand new idea and we want to see if it's really worth pursuing, or maybe it's the direction we should go. We understand our strategy, we understand our customers, or we want to expand in some way. A design sprint may be the way to go. It helps us to determine, should we do this thing or should we not? Now, the thing that I like to mention here, and what we may not talk about often enough as an analyst, is just because we know this technique doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work in every situation, in all situations, or anything like that. So just because you can doesn't mean that you should, right? The time to do a design sprint is when you think about your level of uncertainty, certainty versus uncertainty, and how expensive is the thing we're about to undertake, right? So if you are facing a high level of uncertainty, we really don't know what to do. And holy smokes, to do this, to solve, we might have an idea of the problem or have an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. If we're really uncertain about what to do, how to do it, and all of that good stuff, but whatever we choose is going to be pricey, chances are we should go ahead and we should do a design sprint. If it's still a high level of uncertainty, but maybe it's not really an expensive solution, it's on the cheaper side, we can try a design sprint. It might be worth our while. Otherwise, though, if we have a high level of certainty, regardless of the price, if it's really worth your time and energy to do a design sprint, great, do a design sprint. The long and the short of this here, you guys, is just because we're analysts and we want to understand our customers. We want to understand the request. We want to understand the problem to be solved, the risks, the metrics. We want to understand all of this is really good stuff. But not every project or every product increment or every initiative that we want to take on, not every one of them is that would this kind of thing be necessary. That there might be there's a level of overkill that could be occurring, right? So I wanted to make sure that we kind of talked about that. I also wanted to touch on a couple of concepts about structured collaboration, and I'm going to go through the steps very, very super duper high level and show you some examples and some kind of samples from a design sprint so you can kind of see what they look like. But I'm not going to go through all of the how-tos. Sadly, we don't have that kind of time. A design sprint can last as long as 5 days. The general consensus and the way this book is set up, the original design sprint book, is set up to be a 5-day design sprint. There are organizations out there that specifically do a 3 or 4 day design sprint. And when I say or more, Jake actually highly recommends doing 2 design sprints in a row. Start with a 5-day and maybe do another 3-day afterwards to refine the ideas a little bit more. So we don't have that kind of time today. But I want to make sure we understand with structured collaboration, we're focusing on ending with a decision. We're going to be time boxing and sequencing a lot of activities. Things that we do are going to be tangible, but we also work together alone. And together alone, I think, is one of those concepts that as analysts, I highly recommend that you do a lot of together alone work with your stakeholders, with your customers, whoever you're working with. Together alone is a fantastic concept because the idea of together alone is to write ideas silently. It's that silent brain. I call it silent brainstorming, which is sticky note writing by myself quietly. All of us together, there are 23 of us in the room right now, writing down our ideas quietly. And then we share those ideas, we vote on those ideas, and we continue on with the process. That silent storming allows all of the voices to be heard. It ensures the diversity of thought around the room, and everyone has the opportunity to contribute. You don't have to fight that the title in the room or the person who has the loud outgoing personality or whatever your style might be, or if you just simply don't know, that's okay too. You can still participate. So this is one of my favorite concepts from structured collaborations. I'm a huge fan of this and highly recommend it pretty much all the time. So let's talk design sprint. The way a design sprint works is we have 5 days, and I went with the 5-day structure here. There are things that we can collapse down a little bit and kind of change stuff up, but this is the standard design sprint approach. The whole goal here is we're going to create some sort of a prototype, and it doesn't have to be a perfect working coded prototype, not that kind of prototype, but it's going to be something that is polished up enough that we could take this prototype of our idea, of our product, to our customers, 3 to 5 of our customers, and ask them what they think. We can do a little bit of testing and assess that product market fit. We can make some hypotheses along the way and say, hey, is this really going to work? And by the end, we're literally testing with actual users, having these conversations, and then we can assess what happens next. The end result here is next steps, as in, do we build it or do we do another design sprint? Jake always says that it can take at least 2 design sprints to solve really key questions and really big risks. You can either end a design sprint with confidence, we have decided, we agree, and we will move forward, or you might want to try again because you're not quite sure and you want to get a little bit more information. So we map finding the most important moments for our most important customer. We sketch differing solutions. And when we talk about this, I'm going to use the phrase, you do this a lot, or we do this. Those of you in this room, I'm considering you the facilitator. So although I'm saying you do this, The you would be the participants, right? You all that are here as the learning to facilitate or learning what this is, you would be the facilitator. You're not participating in this. You are truly the step back, neutral facilitator, helping to guide everyone on their journey. All right. So when it comes time to sketch, sketching is about identifying or showing what these ideas could be. These are, and it's literally sketchy, rough, doesn't have to be artistic. Deciding is the strongest solution and deciding on which is the strongest possible solution, one or two maybe, and usually one, but if you can get it down, if you can't get it all the way down to one, you might be able to work with two. Form a hypothesis for what we think this is, how it's going to happen, how this is going to work out from a customer perspective. We can build that realistic simulation and then we do our testing. All right. So what parts of a design sprint would be helpful or would work for a BA? Okay, spoiler alert, all of them. Spoiler alert, we can't do all of this in our time. So I picked some key ideas here. So I'm going to keep showing this and I'm kind of going to add some different things to this slide as we kind of move forward here. So the first part of the design sprint and this mapping section, I think can be super helpful from a BA perspective. I think we have the knowledge and the skills to be able to do this. Some of the techniques are really, really straightforward. The whole idea behind the mapping is to first understand some basics. Your basics are going to be all about what is our goal? What are we trying to, what is the problem we're trying to solve, the goal that we want to achieve for our customers, or what is the goal of our customers, if we want to think about it that way. Metrics that are going to help us to understand, did we get there? Like, woohoo, it's time for a pizza party. Or is it, didn't quite make it? And what are the risks we could face? What could prevent us from reaching that goal or hitting those metrics? We also create what we call a map, but it's not like any of those other BA maps we talk about. The map shows us how our customers discover who we are and what it is we want them to do. And we also look at what is the customer's core experience with our product. All right, I hope this all makes sense. Got another slide here that I think I just touched on every one of these ideas. Our goals are all about that problem. This is really, really strategic. And that's why that level of uncertainty and that expense in the little 2x2 we talked about earlier, that's why this, because this is so strategic, this is not something to, hey, we're going to add some new functionality. We're going to tweak this functionality. A design sprint is not worth your time. If all you're doing is tweaking, you're doing bug fixes, don't do a design sprint. Do normal elicitation that makes sense. Oh, we're going to expand our market to serve an entirely new group of clients and a new type of user, possibly worth it, right? So what we're looking at, our goal is answering the question, what is a perfect world for our customers in 12 to 18 months? What does that look like? Metrics is about how do we know we've reached our goal? Now, I did a course with Jake recently, and he said the thing about metrics is metrics can make our goal a little bit more crisp, is the way he thinks of it, but it can also be distracting for certain teams. And in the product management space, there's a lot of pressure put on product managers, possibly even on product owners, but definitely product managers around what are your metrics? Are you achieving your metrics? Are you, that's where OKRs, KPIs, all of that fancy stuff comes into play. Some people get really, really bogged down in the metrics. If it's really distracting, this might be something you'd opt to lighten up on. Or you also have to figure out, and I kind of have a little bit of a bugaboo when it comes to metrics. My little bugaboo, or my little, it's kind of my pet peeve about metrics is it something that's a really real metric that's going to be useful? Or is it like, I hate vanity metrics, that bugs me. I want it to be something, you have to think about whatever you measure is going to be what matters. So you have to choose what you're going to measure very carefully, right? I also happen to have a little pet peeve about risks. Now, the risk here is what might stop us from reaching our goal or hitting those metrics. And my little pet peeve, and I'm going to guess that many of you have seen this happen, so feel free to chuckle or give me an emoji shout out here. When we think about, like, back in the day, waterfall style, when we talked about project risk, we saw how many times, how often did we see Project risks as defined by project managers. I love all project managers everywhere. Well, there's a risk that we won't get done in time. There's a risk that not everybody will be available. There's a risk like, yes. And like, is it a real risk or is it kind of the lazy version of a risk? I hate to say that, that sounds awful, but we want to really understand risk as it applies to our goal and to our metrics. This is not a generic, but what if so-and-so, gets hit by a bus tomorrow? Well, yes, that's absolutely a risk, but we're also not going to create one of those risks for every single person on our team, just in case Thea gets hit by a bus tomorrow. Sorry, Thea, please don't get hit by a bus tomorrow. But she's like, no, right? But that's where my pet peeve kind of comes from, right? What truly is the risk? Maybe it is that we don't have the knowledge, but it's really more about, it's not necessarily about us delivering, because that's what project managers look at, but looking at, will we be able to convince our customers to do whatever it is we think that 12 to 18 month goal is? What about those metrics? Are we going to be able to achieve them? So the way we do this, there are several different techniques that they're actually pretty straightforward to focus in on. When we create these goals and these metrics, this is an example where we were talking about coffee. We were talking about we're a coffee shop, and our coffee shop name was Dark Energy Coffee. And we decided that our goal was that we wanted customers to live in the dark energy culture at home. So you can see that in the blue sticky there. And then they would have these experiences that are similar to what they experience when they go to the coffee shop. They can bring that brewing experience at home. We identified metrics, and these are the final decisions here. So this is after that day of mapping. This is a big chunk of the day, or part of the basics here. It's roughly half a day or so that you would spend on identifying goals and metrics and risks. And then we get into some more of that mapping. The metrics being boosting revenue and having posts that mention dark energy rather than Starbucks, right? And then of course there are risks. Now this is where, like, risks to our customer. Can we really make people believe that brewing coffee at home is truly easy? And it's still good coffee, right? I'm not that great at brewing coffee. I'm better now, but for a while there, I was not getting good coffee out of my coffee system. I'm better. Can we ensure supply chain? That supply chain might be a big risk. Now, one of the things that's important to think about here, I'm giving you the end result here to give you an example of goals, metrics, and risks that comprise the basics here. One of the big things that we talk about with design sprints is, yes, we have a team, usually somewhere in the 7 to 10 people range. Any more than that, we're probably getting to be a little bit too large. We have some specific roles identified as part of this group that is going to be the people, the sprinters or the sprint participants. There's going to be a facilitator. In this case, we're kind of talking to be me or probably you. But those participants, everybody participates, and we're not necessarily concerned about what their job role is or anything like that. We're not saying, oh, we're going to start talking about design. So, okay, design team, go do the thing. Like, that's not it. We're all in this together. But we do have one super critical role, and it's the decider. It's another one of those fantastic concepts. And the decider is the one who makes the final decision. We all get to have the conversation. We all discuss. Those participants are all like, we are working together. We all get a vote. But then when it comes to breaking a tie, saying, nope, this is what we are going to do, the decider is the one who decides. All right. So in this particular example, and I wanted to toss that in here now, is the entire group brainstormed potential goals, potential metrics, potential risks. They did that silent storm and then did a dot vote, and with a required number of dots for their voting, a limited number, three or five for each of these areas, 3 for goals, 3 for metrics, 3 for risks. And then the decider makes that final decision looking at, okay, these are the few that got the most votes. These are, there are 2 risks that I think are the most important. Those are the ones I'm bringing forward. And that's what we get at here. All right. I see a chat. I want to see if there's a question here. It is the single point of accountability. I absolutely love that. And it's if you ever have a challenge, like fantastic tip. If you have this situation at work where you have the committee that makes decisions, try to get them to choose a single decider. In a design sprint, you force people to trust the process and you force them to pick a decider, and the decider has to decide. There's some other flexibility that we can get into as far as what if the decider is not 100% available, and like there are ways around stuff like that. And there are key moments for the decider to be there. But having a decider to be that accountability person is so important, especially because we're in this intense sprint situation. Jim, I will give you that information towards the end. Remind me if I forget. All right. I just wanted to check if that was a question while I was here. Now, as we're working through the goals and all of that good stuff, the goals and the metrics and the risks, the next piece that we're going to come up with is we're going to we're going to identify our customer and their core experiences. At this point, we are not getting into massive work on personas. We are not getting into a ton of detail as to doing too much analysis. We're just trying to look at what our possibilities are and starting to think about who our customers could be. And then we're looking at how they discover us and what their core experience would be like with our product. In this particular, so we're looking at these goals. Like, remember, our goal was about this coffee brewing experience at home. Well, who could be our possible customers? So here, I'm looking at this, discovering this. What's really cool here is we look at who our customer is, how do they discover us, what do they learn, and then what do we want them to start doing? This is their call to action, right? So we do a little bit of that brainstorm in this format of the customer discovers, and then they learn, and then they do this, right? So I know it's kind of hard to see here. So our newbie coffee person sees via a foodie influencer, they learn about making videos for different brews for different occasions, and they follow a TikTok challenge to place an order online. Right? That's solid call to action. And once again, we would all, as participants, create some of these lines of what is that discovery process? How do we get people to do the thing we want them to do, right? How do they discover us? Who are they? How do they discover us? And what do we want them to do as a result? After we decide on one or two of these, or we once again vote, the decider would select one. I grabbed several options just to show you what they might look like. Then we would also look at their core experience. The core experience of a coffee newbie, for example, here is to take a coffee quiz and to get and order their recommendations, like based on what you've said you like. You will like this flavor. You should buy it. And then they get their coffee supplies and they make their delicious coffees. So that's the core experience that we want them to have. This is just one example, and it's kind of the decided upon one. It was a little bit harder to grab an example on this one. So I did my best. I tried. So you could kind of see it. I want to check those questions here. Thanks, Robert. You're absolutely right. Who proposes or decides typically to have a design sprint? Jillian, it can be something that is suggested from a product perspective. It could be when we have, so you as a BA, you could suggest, you know what, we're feeling like we don't know the direction we want to go. Maybe we should spend some more time up front. This isn't just simple elicitation. This is very strategic work. We will get to that point, and there will be some moments where you do feel like you're doing some level of elicitation, but you're pretty early in the process. And there are facilitators out there. Like, I can come in and facilitate a design sprint for you. You don't have to become an expert in design sprints. I'll do it for you. But at the same time, you can pick parts of this. I'd recommend, like, most of it, it is a really powerful tool. But at the same time, it takes a lot of effort. And yes, you get some really good answers at the end, but that's why I'm like, you want to be careful as to when you use it. So there could be a few different people who might end up recommending this. All right, so once we've identified our goals, metrics, and risks, and we've identified who our customer is or who we plan to target and their discovery experiences and their core experiences, we're going to create a map. And this map brings all of that together to identify, and this is again the end result, where we've identified discovery and core. And what we're doing is we're bringing it all together to this map to kind of actually link the process up. Our customers are here, are our coffee newbie and our coffee enthusiasts, and they're both going to go down that discovery path by identifying an influencer that they see some TikTok tutorials, and that influencer gives them a special code to buy a new product. I can't read the rest of it. They're going to go to our website and take the coffee quiz and get their recommendations. They're going to, and we're going to put that stuff in their cart. They can update that quiz. They can go get more recommendations. They can take the quiz again, whatever they'd like to do. And the outcome is we want to turn them into a masterful home barista. We still have some risks that are important though. Now these red boxes, as well as our target risk, are what our decider has determined are key moments, our key customer and key moments in the discovery process. If we don't have good, powerful, amazing TikTok tutorials, if we mix that, none of the rest possibly even matters, right? That's what our decider decided. That's where the TikTok, why it's circled for the TikTok tutorials, right? So the decider makes these big decisions, and from all of these other areas, and then we map everything out and get to the point where this is where we need to focus our development or the rest of our design sprint on. How are we going to make this work? What's this going to look like? All right. So this helps us to understand who our customers are and the direction that we're going to go. Next, from a BA point of view, now we're to day 2, right? We're at sketch. Now, sketch for storyboards and ideas, I'm not saying that that is not a BA space or it's not super useful for us. It absolutely is. The idea of doing a sketch is really to focus on those targets and to kind of, it's kind of funny, we say that the sketch is your bet. I bet if our target moment worked like this, we would achieve our goals. What does that look like? And I'm not saying write out a TikTok script, maybe you would, but what else are we really trying to do here? Your sketches, and everybody who's a participant would create a sketch. We can dig a little bit more into customers. We can dig into there are a lot of pieces that are part of this day 2 in the sketching concepts. But what we're really trying to get to is some sort of a visualization of what this product could be, what the method and the discovery and the whole map, what could that look like, so we can figure out where to focus. If every single person in that room creates a storyboard and ideas and kind of sketches out what they think will work, what happens is we have a lot that we can talk about, right? Because each of us is going to take a slightly different approach, even with our key target moments. I said TikTok videos. Some of you might be thinking, but Jen, I'm not on TikTok. I am not on TikTok, but I do watch Instagram reels. There are certain reels I like, there are certain reels I hate. I can probably think through this. I can imagine what we would want this experience to look like, and we can kind of figure out the direction we would want to go. Sometimes we recommend that you can there's plenty to do in this day, but sometimes we also recommend doing the sketches as homework, or do a little bit of it in the design sprint workshop, but finish it up at home or sleep on it and try make some edits in the morning or something like that. Sometimes your best ideas come to you when you've walked away and you give yourself time away, time to kind of let that background brain of yours noodle and canoodle and think about stuff, right? Our next big step is to do deciding. And this is something that I think not only within a design sprint, but this is the kind of thing that I think would be fantastic to apply to other areas of our BA work, but we're going to keep it in the design sprint space here. In the deciding moment, as a group, everybody who is a sprinter and who is participating, we're going to look at all of the sketches that have come out of the previous day's activities. We're going to build some heat maps around those ideas, do some reviews, and then figure out what's going to happen next. So let me just show you an example and kind of walk you through it. Again, this is back to our sketch and design. This is an example. The reason it's pink is because this is one that our decider in this particular group said this is the one we should do. So the barista hack was the title of the process or the thing that was the sketch. And so you can kind of see, and I know you can't read it really well, which is kind of okay. But the idea here is everybody, again, silently looks at all of the sketches. And when you have like 7 to 10 people, it's not going to be too difficult. You're going to look at it and you're going to do dots with the ideas within the sketch or something that like, I like this, this is good, this is speaking to me, I love this. Like right here, we see our cool hipster bearded person that is making coffee and we're like, yeah, that's cool. That's gonna totally reach the people we're looking for. We've got cool music, whatever it might be, whatever's resonating, right? And you can see where your heat map goes. Right after everybody, and this is unlimited dots across all of the sketches that have been created. So you're dot voting to say, I love this. This is cool. I really think that this is going to work, whatever it might be. You're saying essentially, I like this with a dot. The yellow stickies get placed when we do a speed review. The facilitator is going to try to give us a word or some sort of a identification, right? We're going to label each cluster of dots with some sort of identification. So when we say that this is going to be a hack, the hack sounds like a shortcut or it's expert level, it's leveling up, it's hip to say, let's do a hack. That's that you can kind of see that one here. Break down simple and accessible steps. That's what all of these stickies or these dots are kind of telling us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all through all of the sketches that we're looking at. I'm only showing you one. We do our best in this moment to not identify who created this, right? You might know, you should, and you as a participant, if you happen to be in a participatory setting, like you were participating, you'd create your sketch, you'd vote on your own sketch, you'd put you vote on other people's stuff as well. And even through where the stickies are, you're still just participating in the conversation, but we're not saying, okay, let's look at what Jen came up with, right? This is kind of quick and dirty stuff. We're not trying to get your art skills out. We're not trying to make things perfect here, but we're just trying to talk about the ideas. The blue stickies are our next step, which is we're going to be, each of us as a participant is going to select our favorite and we're going to write our name. And what we're truly saying is, we should test this idea because. So here Ian says, we should test this idea because it shows how easy it is to make amazing coffee. Bob says we should test this idea because it focuses on the risk we want to test, right? The blue sticky, we are selecting one of the sketches that we are going to move forward with. Now, because everybody in the room is making that decision, we're still going to go back to our decider to make that final choice. And in this case, this is the one that our decider, they get final say. All right, let's take a look. We've got 2 more steps and then some tips and tricks to talk about. Prototyping to build a realistic simulation. And so here, I showed you the heat map and the speed review. We can then create some hypotheses and then we get into a storyboard flow. The hypothesis creation step allows us to think about what is it that we are going to be testing. We believe that this could happen, right? We believe that if we see this, it will tell us this answer, this response. The storyboard flow is creating a little bit of a roadmap to what we want the prototype to look like. The prototype building might be some quick and dirty wireframes. It might be some, we're literally thinking about, so I'm scrolling through Instagram or I'm scrolling through TikTok and I see this video that has the cool music and I see somebody that's issuing a challenge for trying to make this particular coffee this particular way. So I see something that's about TikTok and then I see the try this and then I go into, and now I've got some mock-ups around the website and the challenge. And if you join this challenge and post this way and whatever it might be, right? we're going to build some sort of a simulation. This is not a 100% working technical model. This is draw stuff out, right? It's create a paper prototype that you will be able to work through with your key customer, right? Some steps I've skipped over here are things like not like testing here. What's really helpful in this testing concept, and we're not testing to see if it's built right or anything like that. It's not QA testing, but what we're doing is we're taking our prototype to customers, whoever we identified as those customers. We are going to be trying to answer certain questions that I have probably identified throughout the hypothesis, but also through our risk assessment and those other questions that we believe are going to help us to determine if we have product market fit. So earlier in this process, especially if you're doing a 5-day sprint, usually on day 2, you're going to be doing a little bit more of customer identification and finding out who could these people be, because somebody is calling them and setting up a time for them to come in on Friday so we can show them our prototype, right? If this is a 5-day, this is Monday through Friday, on Friday, we're going to bring a customer in. We're going to bring that coffee newbie in, and we're going to show them this stuff. And we're going to ask them some questions. We're going to interview them to understand what they think and move on from there. So what we do is we watch and we vote. So our test preparation and storyboard development, as we create the hypothesis, we are generating questions. Is this a product market fit for this particular person? Where we have some questions around risk, questions around hypothesis. This is our list of questions. This is a little tight version. I'll show you a bigger one here in a second. As the interviews are occurring, there's one person who is doing the interviewing, others are watching and observing, and they are taking notes. So if customer 1, we might be popping in, hey, I think that they really like this. I think that, yes, it is a product market fit for them. That's when I'm going to use a green sticky note. Yes, it achieved product market fit. I might make some other notes or quotes or whatever else. If I don't believe that this fit for them, I think the answer is no, I'm going to use a pink sticky note. So red light, green light kind of ideas here. Then for each of the customers that we do interview, the decider is going to look at, hey, yeah, this mostly green, probably a check mark. Look, it's kind of even. Okay, we're going to go green. Sometimes the decider, it might be kind of even, and they might say it's a yes, they might say it's a no. It's up to the decider to decide once again, right? You can also grab stickies that are yellow or white and use those for quotes or other special things that kind of stood out to you in that moment. So you could capture those. That can be especially powerful later. So if you get one of those, whew, wow, that meant something. We got to write that down. Do it. Right. So what we're going to be seeing here is we do the watch, we vote, we do some recapping that's going to look like this. And then we are going to get into the point of getting into a conclusion. And once again, these are just kind of examples to give you an idea. The same questions, different customers you can kind of see. Customer 3 was just not our fan, right? Customer 2 loves us. So we look across, and this is where, hey, 2 green, 2 red, the conclusion comes from the decider that yes, we have achieved product market fit, but our hypothesis telling our story will convert buyers, we don't think we got there. The decider does not believe we're there yet. Photos of our cafes will build trust and credibility. No, we don't think we're there yet. We might have, hey, the coffee enthusiasts have found us credible. Should we move forward is the next step. Next steps come into what should we do? Honestly, do we start to build and do the things that we've been talking about, build the challenge and the coffee quiz and all of those things? Or do we do another design sprint? Do we just need to tweak this a little bit? Who knows? But we, once again, discuss and we decide. All right. That's the fastest ever discussion of a design sprint squished down. And I know you're like, there's so much more. There is a ton more. I do want to hit a couple of quick little facilitator tips and tricks, because I think some of these facilitator tips and tricks are not only for design sprint facilitation, but I think they can help us in a lot of areas of what we do. So first of all, focus on, sorry, my N key doesn't work all the time. Focus on the big three: asking questions, write stuff down, and mind the clock. If you're doing anything that is time boxed, you got to have somebody on that clock. As the facilitator for a design sprint, you get to point to the recipe, you get to point to the process and trust that process and say, it's going to take us 10 minutes to do this. That's what we're going to do. There is literally in this book a checklist that tells you exactly what to do, when to do it, how long to take, and all of your timings, right? So you want to trust that. And what's nice about it is you can then also blame the process and blame the clock as necessary. This will come up in a moment. All right, the next slide. The process will work. And I think when we approach, like, I know I'm fond of saying that flying by the seat of my pants is my favorite way to fly. Yes, but I like to remain flexible, but I've also developed certain skills and certain techniques that I kind of know what to expect, and I know how long certain things are going to take when I'm doing elicitation or when I'm running certain workshops. Here, when you're doing something that's really meant to be 5 days, very focused, you've got to get things done on time. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. I'm not saying that the design sprint process should apply to all BA work, but what I am saying is a process and timings could work for a lot of other BA stuff that's going to help you to find the value and work with your people better. Get commitment or don't do it. This is meant to be in the room all together or virtually, 5 days, focused, no multitasking. Like, there are rules. If you can't get everybody to be in that room for the amount of time that you need them for, the answer probably is you don't need to do this, or you don't have the buy-in to do it, right? You can't have folks floating in and out all day, every day for 5 days and still get the results that you really want. If your decider is a high level person that can only give you certain times, there are certain times when the decider may be critical, and you can still do a lot of consensus related work, but there are going to be times when the decider is critical. But most everyone else, you want people, if you can get them there and 100%, if you're in person, no devices, that's better. Explain the concept before you start so people understand what we're trying to accomplish. This is not about identifying requirements. This is not identifying a roadmap for the next 5 years or anything like that. This is 12 to 18 months, right? You need to help people to understand what our goals are by doing this technique. We also want you to ask permission to facilitate. And when you explain your role as the facilitator, I'm going to keep you honest. I'm going to keep you on time. I'm going to guide you through this process. Is this all right with everyone? It feels a little awkward. It feels a little weird, but it helps them to say, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what's going on, and we're going to trust you to do this. It feels weird, but it matters. There are times when it's like, hey, I said I would do this. Sometimes you might have to pull out that facilitator card and be like, okay, I know it's weird, but we're going to do it anyway. You don't need to be there to outsmart anyone. You shouldn't be participating. You shouldn't be the one in there trying to be the smartest one in the room. That's not your role as the facilitator. Even if you are a subject matter expert, if this is you at work and you know all the stuff about this system and you know the direction that you want to go, that's not your job right now. So you can limit yourself back a little bit. I totally love this. 90 minutes is the P limit. Give people breaks, right? So you want to make sure that you give people that time. Some of the other tips are things like stay hydrated. You need caffeine. You need to stay hydrated. If you are well hydrated, the 90-minute thing will not bother you because you will need to be leaving as well. So keep that in mind, that you have to give people a bit of a brain break. They need those bio breaks. They need those stretch breaks. Even if you're virtual and you're doing this in, say, Miro or something like that, you got to give people those breaks. A lot of what we ask people to do in a design sprint, but also in a lot of the other techniques that we might do, those sticky note activities that I personally love so very much, only awkward. Sometimes we ask people to do weird stuff. And in this process, it will feel weird. Own it. I know this feels weird, but here's what we're going to do. Here's why we're going to do it, right? And again, seriously, with the no extra devices, you got to stay focused. And there are plenty of other tips and tricks we can talk about it, but these are some really important ones for design sprints. My final little note here is how to deal with some difficult people. And I think this pops up for us quite often in a lot of the, I'm a big fan of gamifying and doing different techniques. I'm all about, like, my mantra for the universe is to shake people out of their regular way of doing something. I want them to think in different ways. So I'm going to do different and new stuff. That's why I like the concept of design sprints so much. It's a different way to get people to focus. Some people don't want to do that. They're like, I don't want to write sticky notes, or I don't believe this is going to work, or whatever it might be. We're going to have some of those difficult people. There are 3 ways that you can kind of, in an escalation sort of a manner, handle this. First of all, you can capture it and keep going. Blame it on the clock. In a design sprint, we are on a time limit. We don't have the time to dig into that right now. So we want to get to it. Let's capture it so we can keep going. This might be the dreaded parking lot. Be careful about the dreaded parking lot. I personally hate parking lots because I've had ideas or questions that have gone into parking lots and they're still there. And that was 10 years ago. And no, I'm not bitter. Why would you ask? Right? Like, quite literally, if you're going to put something in a true parking lot, you got to make time for it. And that's a universal, right? In this situation, we are on a very time boxed schedule. You will have time to argue that point. You will have time later, and that's the next step. Remind folks that the process will take care of whatever, and I hate to be negative, but whatever argument they're trying to make, right? Try to agree, but redirect. Let's make sure your point is reflected in the map or whatever. We'll have time later to make a case for the solution you think best. Like, we can discuss this later. We don't need to, like, go to bat for it right away. We'll get there, I promise. Let's make that happen. If you're still having trouble with that one person who just doesn't want to participate, doesn't want to wait for it's their way or the highway, you might have to get direct. You might have to take them aside, take them outside. I really do value your contribution. And in order for this process to be successful, it's not a but. In order for this to be successful, and in order for us to be successful, this is what I need. And figure out how you can help them to understand that there is a process. This process has been proven to work. It will work. It might feel weird. It might feel awkward along the way, but it'll work in the end. We'll get there and we can still talk about it. And even if we get to the end, we will get to the point of, the decider is the one deciding for a reason, right? So if you need to get them to do something in particular to maybe not be difficult every step of the way, you got to figure out a way to ask for what it is that you need. All right, you guys, I hope that this was helpful. It was looking at design sprints with a little bit of that lens for BA related work, why we would want to be doing some of that work. What I want to toss up here is I have a little feedback thing here. You can scan this QR code. You can go to talk.ac/Jennifer Battan. There are A's in my last name. There will be a code when prompted there. And it's going to ask you, some of what you thought. I'd appreciate any feedback. Feel free to put in that code for talk. That's going to get you kind of linked up to between the Uncommon League and myself. We're kind of working through getting some of our newsletter relaunched, get you on some of those mailing lists and things like that. So you can fill this out now, you can fill this out later, absolutely. While you're doing that, let me kind of open it up. I do have a contact form next, or just like my contact information, so you can figure out where to find me if you'd like to. And you're absolutely welcome to link with me on LinkedIn. My email will be on the next slide. You can shoot me a note if you have any particular questions. I am happy to chat about this stuff, give you any guidance. This is the kind of stuff that I get really, really jazzed about. If you have any questions in this moment, let's go ahead and open that up. I will, by the way, be getting the slides as a handout to the team, so they will have those available for you, so you can try to zoom in on some of this stuff as well. I know we had a question about the techniques book, and Robert was able to pop it into the link into the chat. So the Uncommon Book of Analysis Techniques. I've got an update that I've still been working on that one. The Uncommon Book of Analysis Techniques, it is not ever going to be a physical book as a whole. It is too big. We already have like 120 some techniques in that book, and I have another 30 that I need to edit, and I have another 30 I need to write just for our next update. So I keep saying I'm going to do that, and I have to get it done. See why I need a project manager in my life. There we go. All right. Does anybody have any questions I can help with? Questions, thoughts, confusion, anything like that?
Jen, I have a question.
Sure.
This is Thea. I want to know, you said that this is for a product and we were talking about customers. I work for a company that we need to roll out a work management program. It's going to impact 5,000 to 10,000 people. It seems like to me we could use this technique to be sure that we are designing the right program for these people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So think of your customers, and in the product space, we tend to use the word customer. And it's really fascinating to me because we don't necessarily want to say the word user so much, which is fine. But we talk about our customers as who's going to buy, right? And even in this example with a coffee shop, we're talking about who's going to go buy coffee, right? Who's going to buy coffee that I can brew at home and get into this whole idea of what we can do, right? Even if you're working on a product, system, or whatever that is internal to your little universe of work, right? If this is an internal, if we think about something like an HR system or whatever, I always use HR because that seems to be, yes, there's the recruiting side of HR, which is we want people to come in and apply for jobs, but there's stuff like, hey, you might need to request time off or whatever that might be and put in your timesheets. That's an internal kind of a product. It's by us, for us in some situations. You still have customers. You still have competition. And some of that competition might be as simple as, okay, HR, pretty good chance that if you want to take a day off, you're going to have to use the HR system. Or are there ways around it? Or are there other tools that you could use? Or are there ways around the process? Can you circumvent the process? People, if they don't like your product, even internally, they'll figure out a way to circumvent that process in some way. So this is absolutely, if it's going to be a huge rollout like that and you've never done this kind of work, this kind of a sprint at the end, and again, by the time you get done with that testing, now you can figure out, okay, my next steps are our next steps team that we've been working with. Is it that we should do it, or should we do another design sprint? Like I mentioned, Jake Knapp has run hundreds, probably thousands of these. He usually plans for 2 design sprints for every client he works with to do this twice. Maybe it's a full week and a shorter week, but it's roughly 2 weeks to get the work done.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Who else has questions? Well, Jen, looks like you knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I will say, so this sprint book, it's been out for a while. New York Times bestseller and all that. Mine doesn't have the sticker on it that says that. But I will mention that Jake is coming out. I don't know if he's doing it as a full book, but this was the initial version. And the book is still fantastic, right? I gave you an overview. Several of the things that I talked about in here, I just did some training with Jake himself, which was fantastic. And what he talked about was essentially design sprint version 2.0, where after doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these and working with other facilitators who have been facilitating design sprints, he got feedback. But he also discovered, hey, this is where we can tweak things. We can make some modifications. Oh, this is super critical. Don't miss this. For example, they used to say that testing, 5 customers, find 5 people that you can test with. After doing about 100 of these, they're like, 3 is fine.
Cool.
interesting. So 3 of a particular type, like there's all sorts of stuff, but if you read the book, it's going to say do 5, you have to do 5, but they've tweaked things a little bit. The timing is still at 5 days. But there are a bunch of other resources, and I think Jake's coming out with, like I said, I'm not entirely sure that it's going to be a new book, but he has been doing updates onto the Sprint website and stuff like that as well. So there's a lot of great stuff. I agree with you, Andrea. There's a lot to absorb. This is taking 5 days and squishing it down into, sorry, a little bit over an hour, but it's really, really meant to be an overview that this concept, if you're going to be doing something that is perceived as risky or it's scary, a lot of big projects are scary, right? This might be a way to get y'all started on the right foot, right? It's not just let's dive into elicitation. Let's not just dive into the first agile sprint and learn something and try stuff. And it's okay to refactor. And I'm not saying halt all work to do this all the time. You may not need to do this. And I'm sure you can imagine some of your projects, you might be sitting there like, we do bug fixes. You don't need to do this for bug fixes. Right. But there are other times when it can truly be helpful. I will pop up my info page here. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. I'm on the socials as the Out of the Box VA. My big passion is looking at how we can add and utilize creative problem solving techniques in our day-to-day jobs, make our jobs a little bit more fun. I think this is a fun thing to do. I think it's also super, super valuable. So if you have any additional questions, please reach out. This is the kind of stuff I love to talk about. If you are going to be at the conference in Orlando, stop by, say hi, tell me that you are here. I truly appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Jen. Okay, folks, thank you for joining. Let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Next week, we have Robert Snyder going to talk about empathy. He's going to talk about some updates to the RACI. And so I'm looking forward to that. Since I teach RACI, I want to see what he has to say. So we will meet back here next week and learn more and be better. If you know anybody else who's interested in making themselves better, tell them about us. Thank you again.